All right, so I think we're live. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining. I'll briefly give a quick intro on the panel, but we'll be talking about educating the next generation of consumers, talking about TikTok, influencers, gaming, and everything in between. My name is Megan Loist. I am an investor at Lear Hippo. We're investors in a number of ed tech companies focused on the future of education, ranging from Wonder School, Class Dojo, Expressible, and I'm also the founder of Gen Z VCs, which is it's the largest and fastest growing community for Gen Zers in tech. So I'm Gen Z myself, I'm 24, so I think about TikTok, influencers, all that kind of stuff all day long as a consumer and investor, and I will let Michael take it from here. Introduce yourselves, I'd love to hear more.
Thanks for having us, Megan. My name is Michael Vilardo, co-founder and president of Emil Learning. We're based out of Los Angeles, building the Netflix of high school education, where you engage with our videos and vibrant community and actually earn high school and college credit. So super excited to talk about the content space, leveraging TikTok, and all these great founders up here.
Jay.
Hi everyone, I'm Jay Demerit. I'm more known for being a professional soccer player. I played for the US in the World Cup in 2010. I started my own youth program called Captain's Camps, which turned into like a holistic leadership program for teenagers. We're now turning that into a digital program called the Rise and Shine app. We've partnered with EA to gamify learning for kids in a masterclass type way with a TikTok interactive piece.
Carissa?
Thanks, Megan. Thanks, everyone, for having me. My name is Carissa Cabrera. I am a marine biologist and content creator. Those things can intersect. And I work on behalf of Tract, which is a peer-to-peer self-directed learning platform for upper elementary school kids. And it's really about targeting Gen Z and really engaging project-based learning ways.
Amin?
Hi, my name is Amin Issa, and I'm really grateful to be here. I never thought I would talk about gaming as an education tool, as my parents think of it as an education decline. So it's really cool to see this. We have an all-in-one companion that basically walks people through games and gives them information before, during, after, and in between games so that they can improve and get better at a rapid rate and enjoy more.
Awesome. So yeah, I mean, we're talking about the next generation of consumers. So I'll give a quick background, like who is Gen Z? Who are we talking about here? Gen Zers are born after 1995, the first really digitally native generation, right? $143 billion in spending power, sitting around boardrooms, making decisions, and 35% of the global population. And I think one thing that's really unique about Gen Z is the way that sort of social media connects us all and really drives culture, drives the way that we're learning about new products, new services, and education broadly. I'd love to hear from you guys about how you think about social media, whether it's from a user acquisition perspective, in getting in front of students, and also just how it's how you're thinking about social media in the context of the apps you're building. Michael, you want to start?
Absolutely. So we're really leaning heavily into the creator economy. When you look at our teaching base, we're about to debut 23 classes for credit this month. And our teachers have an aggregate following of 5 million followers across social, including 3 with over 1 million. And that's really important for several reasons. One, it's a litmus test for how strong they are in front of the camera, which is really important for creating engaging content. And 2, it's a channel of acquisition, as Megan alluded to. And so, I mean, just look at pop culture today and society. 10 of the highest pay-per-view fights for boxing, 3 of them have been from the Paul brothers, like them or hate them. It's really attractive to have eyeballs on your product. And so we want to lean into creators that are engaging with our users and dive in all the way on having a Gen Z, Gen Alpha obsessed teaching base.
Carissa, you want to weigh in there?
Yeah, I do want to respond to that. So going off kind of what Michael said, we can lean into it or we can fight it. And at the end of the day, Gen Z wants really good curated content. And instead of having that be mindless content, let's use that as a tool for education to create an informed and empowered next generation. And that's kind of what Tract is doing, because Gen Z feels connected to content creators. If you can put meaningful lessons within that, you will ultimately build a community of students that has like information and values associated with what they want to be when they grow up.
It's also a hiring tool, right? Like, isn't that
Absolutely.
how, like, maybe talk a little bit about like your role as a TikTok creator and how that's like impacted, how even your career.
Oh yeah, I was teaching in classrooms about marine conservation for 5 years, and then school shut down, and I went to TikTok because that's where they were at. And as a teacher, I saw that students were paying more attention to TikTok than they were with me, and I started creating content on there. And Tract is creating a platform for that content for students so that they can ultimately engage with content creators that are what they want to hear about in an entertaining way, edutainment.
I love that. And I mean, you have a pretty unique story with Reddit, right, at the center of sort of how you built your business.
Yeah, so gamers live on Reddit, like tons of them. So when we first started, we had this idea and we said like, hey, we're gonna make this tool. How many people are interested? And we got our first 15,000 signups just from a Reddit post. And it's been a powerful way for people to share that our tool has worked for them. We create infographics that go in the product and also go inside Reddit and other social avenues that people digest really easily and say, oh, I want to use that when it's timely in the game. And so they come to us through that way, and then the discussion happens on Reddit and Discord heavily. We have a huge Discord community that is always sharing information, supporting each other, learning the game, and getting better.
No, I love that. I mean, I think it's hard to talk about social media without talking about, like you said, the creator economy, the rise of creators, the rise of influencers. And when I think about myself as like a Gen Z consumer, the people that I look up to, the people my friends look up to, more often than not, they're influencers on Instagram. They're people that we see on our TikTok feed. My personal favorite is Tinks. She creates rich mom content.
She's great.
So she's great. But that's ultimately who I think people turn to for, not only just advice, but education, things that they want to learn across the board. I'd love to understand how each of you guys think about, involving those influencers in your ecosystem and again, like meeting consumers where they are in a lot of cases where, for Gen Z, it's online. So Jay, maybe you want to start?
Yeah, no, I think we need to leverage the blue check marks. As we say, it's important because, in every teenage program I work at, if I put a mentor in front of them, they're going to validate when no one's looking, and they're going to use their devices, and they're going to go, okay, yeah, that person's validated. They are the CEO of that company. Okay, now I'll listen. And so unlocking those ears is really the first check, and to get through that door is usually through an influence or something that they've seen or a brand they support or an influencer they follow. These are the people we need to surround themselves with to open that first gate of understanding, and then you get to hit them with the practice. And that's where TikTok comes in. TikTok comes in as the first ones that you can set up a device and do something. So I can set up a device and do a dance, I push up, I can make a smoothie, and now to flip that interaction into education is really the next big opportunity.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And Michael, anything to add there on the influencers?
Yeah, one of our most exciting teachers is a star athlete like this guy, Brandon Copeland. He's on the Atlanta Falcons, and he actually was a classmate of mine at Penn and teaches a class at Wharton Business School. And to leverage his personal, profile on TikTok and Instagram, and to lean into, the pop culture references that he could connect with a student that looks up to him because he watches him on Sundays, and now he can learn financial literacy from him on the meal platform. It's so exciting to be able to see these students' eyes light up because the teachers that they're able to connect with, they're seeing on their platform.
Yeah, I mean, and I'd love to, Carissa, what's your experience being an influencer and creating content and forming those connections with students? I'd love to get your take there.
Yeah, I think that one of the coolest things about content creation is that the timeline of it can be so much faster. For example, when you're a teacher, you want to incorporate more innovative learning methods, but the earliest you can incorporate that is the following year. Whereas now I'm able to come back. We had a climate report released yesterday that's very compelling. I'm able to go back, create a lesson plan on that, and host it on track to be posted next month for students to learn about. So that is what's really appealing about using social media for edutainment and for education, because it's relevant, it's applicable, and they're able to come into conversations with literacy that they didn't have access to before.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, we're talking all about education, how we're getting things in front of consumers, and I think in today's world where anyone can create content on TikTok, on Instagram, I think the barriers to create content today are lower than they've ever been. I think that brings some interesting things to light around personalization, the curation aspect of things, how you're getting the right content in front of the right students at the right time, all those types of things, whether it's building your algorithm, whether it is again, finding, more personalized methods to get content in front of students. I'd say Jay, I think you're doing some interesting things with Rise and Shine there. I'd love to maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think we're, one of the things we're really starting to do is provide mental health solutions. And at the end of the day, one of the big problems is, what do you look like? And so one of the things in the algorithms we're building is when you log into the app, the first thing you meet is your own intelligence split into the 10 forms of human intelligence. And it really starts that introspective look. And when every social media that exists is the outward look first, or I wear pink lipstick even though I hate pink, but I got more likes for that. So now I'm creating this behavior that's actually just superficial. It's not actually real. And so within that, we're flipping the script and we're making people understand the 10 forms of intelligence that they have first. So then you can go to lead in the world and go and be who you are.
Love that. I mean, maybe you want to take this as well. Given just like mobalytics, it's like personalization is so key.
Yeah, I think one of the coolest things that you touched on was that validation that people look up, and I think in the gaming world that's maybe more prevalent than anywhere else because you have a rank and you can easily see it, right? And so if a person gives you good advice and they're only like gold or platinum, you discard it immediately. But if someone who's like at the highest level gives you that same advice, the exact same thing, they take it differently. And we've learned the value of that in what we've built, right? And so, what we do is we find pros and players who are really good, and we take their data and we match it to the data of the players that are playing and using our platform. And we say, here's the player that you closely resemble. And to get to where they are, these are the things that you need to do to get there. You have to improve your fighting skill, your farming skill, get more gold, and you'll match their playstyle. And you can pick all these different options so that you play just like them. Pick this champion, pick this build. And so we're able to really personalize that experience towards the person who's playing. But that validation that you said, when we switched the feature at the start, it was just like we would give them that information, and they would say, okay, this AI app, maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong. But then when we matched them to a professional player or like a high-level player, they're like, oh, okay. And then the feature really took off in that sense. Yeah, so it's really cool.
No, I love that. Chris, maybe you want to weigh in here?
I mean, the algorithm is already personalizing your feed for you, but you get to choose what you want to learn about. And self-directed learning isn't a new concept at all. Tract is just a platform that uses content creation to get students to direct their own sense of learning. And it gives students confidence and empowers them to develop interests at a younger age. And I think that personalization when it comes to your lessons is some critical forms of how you form your identity during development, right? Like that's what I remember in school is like the projects that I was able to choose. And those are the ones that I try to create virtually now.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I guess, just shifting the conversation a little bit, when you think about Gen Z, right, I think there's a great stat. It's like 42% of Gen Zers want to start their own business. They're very entrepreneurial. They're very self-directed in learning, and oftentimes they're making decisions about where they want to learn, what they want to do. But that again, many Gen Zers they're born 1995 or after. They're young. They're still figuring out things out. And I think the moderation piece, like creating a safe environment for young adults to learn, is also really important in embedding in sort of any type of learning service today. So I'd love to get your thoughts on how you guys think about really the moderation piece, especially as community becomes front and center for a lot of these types of companies, and just how you think about creating a safe space where children feel, or Gen Z feel that they can learn, they can choose what they want to do, but also in a way that's very safe.
I think moderation is definitely key, especially on these platforms, because as a parent, and really as a teacher too that cares about your students, you don't necessarily want to give them free reign of something like YouTube or even TikTok. You want something that's moderated, that cares about mental health, that's setting these students up for success. And another component to this is that, I grew up as a millennial, and the age of information was so astounding to me. I was just so excited to have access to information. Gen Z grew up in that space. So now I think it's more about how the information is curated. So is it engaging? Is it fun? Is it applicable? Is it relevant? Is it trendy? All of these things are what drives success behind lesson plans that are made in social media spaces.
Well, I think safety is bred from confidence, and I think you gain confidence when you know who you are. And I think when you start to build skill set lessons, or you start to get kids to not just take information and think that they know it, they actually get to practice it now with some of this interactive technology, with good mentors, with people that they care about that's in front of them, and that creates safety, because the more I do and the more I understand, and the more I understand, the more confident I am. And then that breeds my behavior forward. So I think, starting back with you and how you practice things, and then actually create better filters for that information, and then actually get to practice it and then get something for it.
That was very poetic. I feel inspired. I mean, I'd love to get your take on, like, I mean, you've built a massive community, right? Like, I'd also love your take on moderation, but also how do you find the folks that moderate in your community?
Yeah, it's actually really fascinating. If you spend time on like Twitch or Discord, most channels have mods. It's very common practice. And our Discord has a lot of mods who do a tremendous amount of work for our community. From helping people solve bugs to just kind of supporting people who are new to the platform and are just looking to grow. And really, it's about, you know, creating the right environment for them to say like, okay, this is what being a mod means, and this is your responsibility. And people take it really seriously, and they want to do a good job, and sometimes too good of a job, right? But giving them that ability to feel proud of their work, and they're part of a bigger community. They'll host events. They'll like take action against people who are not behaving. They will suggest features, and giving them cool perks like early access to the product, a voice in our product development, really kind of helps reinforce that that you know you're doing a lot of work, and we're going to give you premium access. You get access to all these perks, and we really appreciate you. I think it's powerful, and we've been around for a long time now, and we've had mods leave and then come back and then leave for good and train in new people. So just creating that environment where people feel like, as you said, they're like safe and they feel they understand more, I think that's really powerful. So, yeah.
No, I love that. I mean, I think, again, that plays into this idea of Gen Z being very entrepreneurial. They want more, they want to take responsibility, they want to step up to the plate. So I think it's great that you're, like, you know, Gen Zers are getting involved not only on, you know, as a passive learner, but also really getting involved in sort of the community aspect. And, you know, I'd love to hear from all of you actually on just the idea of community, how you think about building community, organic growth in respect to your startups, because I think the future of education, the future of a lot of consumer companies is, you know, really bottoms up, community led, where you just build like massive loyalty with the folks in your ecosystem. So how do you think about building community within your startups with students?
I'll take it. So I think that where there's community, there's accountability. And as we move into a digital space, having people with your shared values is key. I always say this in the environmental movement: join a nonprofit, because those people care about the same things as you, and then you'll have accountability to participate. And the same thing is being applied through Tract. So because I focus on climate and ocean literacy on Tract, we have a conservation club where students who have special interests in the environment are able to communicate with me and communicate with the other students that have special interests in those types of lessons. And that way, they're fostering not only that social component, but also have the mentorship. So this can be done, like we have a lot of gaming learning paths on Tract as well, and then they have a gaming path. So if you're especially interested in learning about that, you're being connected with peers around your age, maybe from a different school, that really care about the same things as you. And I think communities, like, it's all it is going forward.
Yeah, I think what's really exciting, we have a really vibrant Discord community, and this digitally native generation, they have the chance to interact with people across the country, which to some it may seem less intimate, yet it's far less intimidating and less anxiety ridden when you're connecting a student from New York City with a student from Portland who are both competing for a spot at Harvard, but they're not from the same school, and they're not seeing that student in the classroom. They don't feel like they're as cutthroat, and they're willing to go through that same application process together. It was a really exciting moment. My co-founder Felix and I hosted a Ask Me Anything this spring, and we had hundreds of attendees, and they were able to ask such genuine questions and really put themselves in a vulnerable state without having to feel the repercussions of having to see X student in the library the next day, or being the one student to be admitted to that school that they dream of. And so I think the opportunity to connect digitally and form communities online can actually end up facilitating more and more genuine connection.
Well, I think you lead with the community. I think Gen Z, again, to your point, Megan, is empowered. They want to do things. They want to try harder. They want to try to get it right. And so now we got to give them something to do. And so, but we make them, in our first 4 hires were a 17-year-old, 2 18-year-olds, and a 19-year-old. And so, because we're making a platform for them, this is their lens. I can help facilitate the platform, but I need them to like the Jordans they can earn, or I need them to like the track that they can win. Because if I don't like it, then who cares? But it's because it's for them. Like, we lead with them. We make sure that everything we do is through, we call them our Gen Z army. And so they help us make decisions. They're on all of our calls. They do all sorts of things. But again, to your point, like, it empowers them and they feel more of a part of a community, to your point, Krista. But at the end of the day, when you empower them and then build it for them, it's amazing how they respond. And so that's our goal, is just to build it with them. And the cool thing about the analytics side is that anytime, if we release a hoodie you can earn, and all of a sudden everyone's going after the hoodies, now we know. And so now, we can go with them too and evolve with them, which is a pretty exciting opportunity for sure.
Yeah, I mean?
I think in gaming, it's really interesting because there's very clear goals and objectives, right? Like kill the dragon or become first in the ladder. And people are on this journey and it's lonely. And so they're already looking for the community. They're looking for their tribe. They're looking for the people who have the same struggles, right? Like I keep getting stuck at this barrier. I can't get past it. Am I not good enough? Do I not have the right teammates? Do I not have the right setup? And so they kind of congregate and they automatically find their tribe. And the challenging part becomes not finding these people. It becomes creating a place where there is a net positive free flow exchange of ideas. Rather, there's a huge tendency to flame and be toxic in gaming. I think that's no secret. And being able to set the tone so that environment doesn't happen where you are is really important. And it's amazing how people will reform in that place. Even people who are likely to be toxic before, if the environment, the pacing is good and there's the right nudges, they will change as well. And usually they're young, so it's easy to do that. It's still like a sponge.
Yeah, and it's, Jay, you brought up a good point before on just like the idea of like, I think creating sort of rewards, gamification around like, I think engaging Gen Z for the long term. I'd be curious, do you have any thoughts on like how like the next generation of startups can think about bringing that authenticity to like rewarding Gen Z for for learning, for being engaged? Because I think, like, again, we want the next generation of companies it's edutainment. It's like, how can you excite Gen Z about learning while they don't even feel like they're learning? Like, I'd be curious to get, and if anyone else wants to weigh in there too.
No, I think it's a great question, because that's really the key. Because I think we call them our carrots. Like, they want to do something for something. But as long as you get those somethings right, the work will come. And so, again, that's where a lot of the beta testing comes in for one thing. But then you ask them, you say, would you rather have a downloaded track that everyone gets from an exclusive DJ that you love, or do you want to have a hoodie that only 10 people can get? So there's a scarcity model in there too. And the cool and actually the most valuable part for us is our partnership with EA. So we use their gamification department, who is the best in the world at how to get you to be addicted to video games. And now we try to flip that. And that's why they're our partner. They want to try to help to the toxic environments that you speak of. They want to do more because they can see the toxicity as well. And so they go, okay, if we can make video games addicting to learning, now we got something we can do. But let's throw in some celebrities. Let's throw in a game pack. Let's throw in, they're actually going to put a Rise and Shine jersey in the game this year in FIFA 22 that the kids can earn for learning about how to make the video game. And so when you give them a fantasy team jersey that they can't get in the store, they can't buy it in their EA store, now again, that's a carrot they actually care about, because they're Gen Z and they care about video games and they care about that type of stuff. So again, they hopefully will tell us, and then we have to create the platform for them to go and earn it.
Love that. Anyone else have thoughts there?
Go ahead, Michael.
Well, when you say edutainment, what comes to mind right away is product and, premium content. And that's something we've leaned into and, double and triple down on. We've really leveraged our Los Angeles location, have gotten content houses in the hills, and really been able to, produce things that Gen Z is used to. As millennials, as you've really alluded to, we've grown up in an information change. Well, Gen Z has grown up with Netflix, Instagram, YouTube. Now they have TikTok. The bar for videography and the bar for attention span has never been more competitive. And so our product, none of our videos are longer than 9 minutes in length. They're all short form, very much geared towards Gen Z, and able to replicate that same success that they're seeing and spending so many hours on these other digital native apps, bring that premium content education and have you enjoy your learning experience. Truly edutainment.
Yeah, and the short form thing I think is really key. Like the average TikTok, what is it, under 15 seconds? Like I remember I have two younger sisters, one of whom I'll show her a video and like you see like her eyes glass over after a few seconds. She's like, is it done? So Krista, did you have something to say there as well?
Yeah, like Gen Z's not going to watch a documentary. They're going to watch 3-minute videos, and I have to somehow find a way to disseminate climate change into that. So but reward systems work, going off of what Jay was saying. Like, they worked when I was in school, they worked when I was teaching in classrooms, and they're working now. And so something that I wanted to bring up was that Gen Z is like something like 2 to 3 times more likely to buy a product that's, more sustainable or mission driven or values driven. And so if you can find a way to tie these rewards to values that they already have, that is, I think, a game changer. So in Tract, like, you get coins for completing certain number of mission paths, and you can choose what you want to do with those coins. And the scarcity model works, but then you also want to give them a choice. So he gets to choose a jersey or an inclusive track. On Tract, you can choose to donate for a conservation club. You can choose to donate coins to One Tree Planted, or you can choose to help the ocean. And so they're giving choices, but they're aligned with the values that they're already embedded in the lesson plans. So, it's hard. Well, I'm sure we all know how to create video content in less than a few minutes. It can be challenging, but it's also a race for the attention span right now.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a ton of sense. And now maybe let's talk about, what does the future of education look like? Like, you're all building, again, education companies for the next generation. Like, how do you, is TikTok going to persist in being like a core acquisition strategy? Is it like, we're talking about short form content. Like, how do you see the education landscape really changing over the next few years as it relates to Gen Z, as it relates to the next generation of consumers?
I honestly, it's hard for me to see a world where people aren't doing everything in a virtual space or in games in 50 years. It's impossible. Already today, people fly drones in the military and other industries. People do surgeries with a robot. The mechanisms, the way we control things is going to be very different. The way we train for those, as simulations become more and more accurate, it's going to follow suit both ways, right? So most of the lessons that I've learned myself in life, my education has come through games. And I say that as someone who's finished a postdoc, which is silly to think about it. It's like getting that far along the line, and that's a very, very last end of the education. But most of what I've learned is figuring out how to kill a raid boss in World of Warcraft and getting 10 people together, different classes, organizing them, doing that, and competing at the highest level, whether that's in World of Warcraft or in a League of Legends team, or even like when kids sit down to play with their friends in a squad and get a battle royale victory, they're still having to coordinate and doing all these things in real time. And the direct feedback you receive in this safe environment is so much more valuable than the delayed feedback. And you can't fail in real life. We have a world where you can't fail. I remember I was mortified when I was getting a C in school. I thought my parents would eviscerate me. So it's, in a game you lose, you just play again, right? You get mad, you get excited. And so this environment that it creates, I see it inevitable that as people who grew up in that environment start to become older, won't see the benefits of how that environment translates very powerfully into the education space and the vocational space and training.
I guess when I think about all my favorite parts of my education experience, a lot of them have come from feeling really connected to my teachers and trusting that type of mentorship, and also the relationships that I built with students during projects that we worked on together. And it feels like in a classroom, in person, that's going to become more and more scarce. So I think we need to be really intentional about how we curate a space that still fosters those really formative experiences in a digital space. And so whether that's through extremely large Discord chats or conservation clubs or things like that, people still need to be able to build those relationships digitally, even if education is moving in a digital direction. And another thing is that even though Gen Z's attention span is really short, and the younger you get, it just gets shorter, we really do need to still be accounting for nuance when we're teaching comprehensive topics. And right now, I'm still figuring out how that needs to be done. And so as we look forward, I think that it's critical that we keep in mind that self-directed learning, project-based learning has been demonstrated to work, but how is that going to work online?
I think, when I think about the future, especially I think of tech trends, I think we always have to stay on the top of that type of thing. If technology is going to lead us, I think, creating like NFTs that have to do with a mentor telling their story and taking that bit, but actually becomes a scalable asset that someone can learn about. And so you stay on those types of trends too. So we're going to try to stay on top of that. I think going back into the mind is one of our goals for the future. Again, really getting that introspective look of understanding that self-reflection piece of what's in my brain. I didn't even know I had one. It's funny, I run a teenage program in physical, and we had a neuroscience company come in, and they put the brain helmet on so they could read the kids' latency in their thoughts, and they hear noises and hear words and things, and it measures the latency of your thought. And the most interesting thing the neuroscience said after the camp was over, I said, well, what was the most interesting thing? He said, the surprise on their face when I told them that their brains were normal. And in a way, that's the problem. People are having anxiety. Gen Z is stressed, and they're killing themselves everywhere because they actually don't know themselves. They're not introspectively looking. They're looking out there and going, who am I? What am I doing? Oh my God, I have anxiety. I don't want to do this. And so, I think flipping the mirror, I think, is really important. And I think there's going to be a lot of people trying to help with that because they see the problem. And I think, again, we want to be a big part of that. And I think lastly, just using the community, using Gen Z and asking them questions and leading with them, I think is the next best part.
Yeah, I think it's really clear, teachers are severely underpaid, and that's where there's a massive teacher shortage. But what's exciting is you saw it in, the Peloton space with, physical trainers. They now pay these physical trainers top of market, leverage technology and media, and able to scale the product so everybody, no matter where you are, can learn from the best. And that's what we want to see with teachers and education, and have teachers really become the star of the show that they are. Pay them top of market, leverage them through technology and media that's now at our fingertips in 2021, and really create a better learning experience for every side of the ecosystem.
And that's great. I mean, I think, we have a few minutes left here, and I think you brought up a really good point, Michael, about like the different stakeholders that are involved in education. Like we talked a little bit about influencers. Like I think the world of stakeholders for the future of education is growing in a lot of ways. Like I'd be curious, any of you have thoughts on, how you think about, partnering with schools, partnering with the government. Like how do you think about these expanding stakeholders as it relates to Gen Z and creating a place of trust and sort of enhancing the education experience?
Yeah, there's been a gap really for so long based on what zip code you're born into or what parents you're born to, into what high school and even elementary education you're going to receive. And so, one thing that we've seen by partnering with several school districts over the last couple of months is a school that didn't have, AP calculus for their students to compete at the highest level because they're not willing to pay a teacher X amount of dollars to teach 4 kids. They can now leverage technology where they can get an accredited platform and allow for that same kid to compete with someone at the Fields School in New York City or Harvard Westlake in LA. And so better leveraging technology and media to empower everyone of any socioeconomic status is really so important to our mission and everyone up here to really empower, no matter who you're born to or what city you grow up in, you can get access to the best teachers possible because of the power of technology and media.
I really like what Jay said about anxiety, and I feel like it's one of the things that as a world we have to help overcome with the Gen Z, right? Because there's just so many choices and then so many images that get painted. And one of the things that's what happens when people don't know how to make the choices in life is they play games a lot. It's really common. And it's so easy to play a game because you have very clear objectives and you get very clear feedback. So you know how to work towards something, whether that's a new helm or a sweet new mount or just a rank or a position. And one of the dreams that I would like to help make happen is I think people who play at a somewhat serious level, they behave the way they problem solve in real life. And right now, there's no clear way to show your skill set and how that's adaptable to other things that you're pursuing in life. And so one of the things we eventually want to do is be able to interpret the data from how you play and help you get towards your goals in life. And I think that's a really big thing because oftentimes what still happens, and not as much as in my day, I mean, just look at what we're having here, is that people are told they're wasting their time when they play so much, where they can put it somewhere more productive. And probably they should play a little less, but they should also understand the value proposition that it's bringing them and how they can leverage that.
I guess one question I have too here is, when we think about Gen Z, it's very, things are very, they're in or they're out, right? Everything is so trend-driven, culture-driven, and a lot of you guys are creating content, curating content. How do you think about curating content that's relevant for Gen Z, but especially as they age and as they find themselves, staying relevant, staying engaged? I'd be curious if any of you guys have thoughts on, how to stay relevant for Gen Z, who's just your mind is made up so quickly about trends, things that you're interested in.
Well, I think one of the things we look forward to later is to move from the gamification side to the certification side. There's been a lot of companies here that are moving to that certification side, and I think that that's the validation piece that we talk about. And so, imagine if you could, earn the Starbucks badge and then you go get the job for feeder programs, where it almost becomes a new version of LinkedIn that young people actually want to be a part of. And so, but you actually earn your skills to get to those badges, or you earn your skills to get to that set job, whether it's an entry-level position or whether you've been refined over the years and you got design badges, you can sharpen your tools in a bunch of different ways and then go use that to get a job. That's really where we all want to go, because that validates the education. And so I think, and if that validation is there, then the education platforms are doing a good job. And I think that's, for me, I love what all these guys are doing, because I believe that there's space for everybody. I really do. I think everybody wins is something that's really undervalued in our world these days, and because we can all appreciate stories and we can all educate because of those stories, and so therefore you never know who's going to relate to you or your story or anyone on this panel. It's crazy, but I see it every day. And that's why it's important that we all win. It's important that we all do this together, because we can see it's a huge problem, and I think we can all have space in the same room for sure.
I really love what you said, Jay, because one of the reasons that I left academia was because I felt like there was a lot of gatekeeping when it came to participating in environmentalism and conservation, and I think that there's room for everybody at the table. And so when it comes to staying relevant, you said trends are getting faster and faster and faster, but how do you create timeless content? How do you create something that someone's going to come back to regardless of whether it's being covered in the news headlines? Relevant content tends to always do well. If news is just happened, that's going to get easily shared and things like that. But how can you create something that people are that's a trusted voice, that has the credibility, the badges, whatever's needed, that's, you're an expert on? And I think the age of influencing with teeth whitening ads is dying out quickly. And if you're not doing something that has value, what are you doing?
I think leaning into a more progressive style curriculum is a great way to, dive into being relevant continuously upon time. There's classes that have not been, in our curriculum that have needed to be for quite a while. Product management, product design, cryptocurrency. This year we're putting out financial literacy, intro to coding, and an acting course. Leaning into truly life and, vocational skill sets that you can earn high school or college credits for, and validate, as you said, your time and efforts put in. The progressive style courses, I think, will really win out over time.
I agree. I was actually just talking with a friend yesterday about how I can't remember the last time I heard the words SOHCAHTOA, which you learn in trigonometry in 11th grade, versus learning how to do my taxes, real life skills, pursuing the things that I'm passionate about. So I think everyone on this stage is innovating in the future of education and creating things that Gen Z wants, needs, and in really innovative ways. So we're coming up on our last minute here, but thank you everyone for joining. Thank you to our panelists and ASU+GSV for having us. But thanks so much, and go Gen Z.